Okay. All right. Hello, class. I'm going to cover a few things today that I just want to put some emphasis on and maybe clear up a little bit. But before I do, because it's been a question already, when you complete the reading quizzes that are part of every chapter, your grade will show up as a 0 in the grade book until the due date. And then after midnight on that due date, you'll see your actual grade. You know, we have to, as teaching everything with all the assignments being online, we have to put some safeguards in just to make sure there's not a lot of sharing. So that's not an uncommon thing to do. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a couple of the slides that I think are either really important, not that it all isn't, or also a little bit confusing. So let me do this for a minute and then share my screen. I might show a video clip too, so I'm going to allow that. All right. So if I did things correctly, we should be in the Unit 1 slides. And Yulia asked me about the food label, which I'm so glad she did, because that can be really confusing. So why don't we do that first? Okay, there it is. All right. Here we go. All right, so let me get to the food label first. And we will look here. Now, interestingly, there's a new food label, and I think I have a slide that shows that. It's changed a little with regards to the vitamins and minerals that are part of the label. The calories are really big, and some of the serving sizes have changed to be more realistic. But this is a great slide, so I'm going to stay here for a minute and emphasize what you may see perhaps on the test, but you should definitely know, just because this is a tool that you can use to learn more about food. So let's start right here with the ingredients list. What's really great about the ingredients list is that the ingredients are listed in order based on weight. So one of the things you can spot really quickly is if a food is very high in sugar or unhealthy fat, that ingredient would be in the top several. So this is whole corn as a first ingredient, which isn't terrible, and vegetable oil. But there's another problem with this ingredient list, and this topic comes after the topic of food versus edible food-like substances, I believe. There's a lot of ingredients. So the top 2 aren't terrible, but if you look at all of these ingredients, there are a lot of things that you wouldn't have in your kitchen that are not common substances. So this is an ultra-processed food for that reason. Now, let me go over to what's called the nutrition facts. Hold on one second. Let me see if I can find a picture. All right. So that's fine. We'll work with this one here. So this is the nutrition facts. And what this does is it gives you an idea of how a serving of this food fits into your daily recommendations. All right. So we start up at the top with what this label considers a serving. And for the chips, it's 1 ounce, okay, or about 12 chips. So I'm assuming this is a little bag. Sometimes you'll see another row that says servings per container, but this is what you need to know. This 12 chips, because everything after this in the label is for those 12 chips. Okay. So 12 Cool Ranch Doritos chips has 150 calories, 8 grams of fat, 1 gram of saturated fat, et cetera, et cetera. So that shows you what that serving is. Now, there's a test question. that asks you to use a label, but it puts you in a situation where you'd be eating more than one serving. So let's say you wanted to eat 24 chips instead of 12. Then what would happen is that you would have to double all of these numbers. So some big giant bags of chips might say the serving size is 1 ounce, but there are 20 ounces in the bag. So if you eat the whole bag, you'd have to multiply by 20, okay? There's one other part of this food label that I think is really important to understand, and you will see a test question on this, and that is the percent daily value. So what this percentage does is it measures what this one serving gives you to your allowance for the entire day being 100. Okay, so this says this provides 12% of your total fat for the day. Okay, 100 would be your total fat for the day. This gives you 12%. It provides 5% of your total saturated fat. So you'd be allowed 100%, and this gives you 5%. Now, one really easy way, because a lot of people get kind of confused or buried by percentages and then say, I don't know what to do with this. There's a 5 and a 20 rule over here that is really helpful, because it says, okay, 5 or under is low, 20 or higher is high. So then we can see, let's take a look here. Do we have anything that's 20 or higher? We have a lot of low. We can see saturated fat's pretty low, along with a lot of these other nutrients. I'm looking for sodium. Sodium's in the middle. Okay, so you see that here. I don't think I'm missing anything. There doesn't seem to be anything that's high. The total fat is and the sodium are probably the highest with the percent daily value. So let's look at a couple other labels here. So this is similar. And again, there are 230 calories in 2/3 of a cup of whatever this is. This has the servings per container, which really confuses people. And it's almost as if you can ignore it unless you're eating the whole container, because everything beyond this point is really based on this 2/3 of a cup. In this case, we do have some highs. So calcium and iron are high in this product, okay? And saturated fat and cholesterol are low by that 5 and 20 rule. Now, one more. This is the new food label. So what differs are the vitamins and minerals that are required. And also you can see here the calories really jump out at you. It's laid out a little differently, isn't it? But people still have to understand how to use that percentage. And this is a great, when you go through the slides, I already had a question about this. And let me show you this, and then I'll see if Yulia has any questions. Okay, so Yulia, did that make sense? Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Okay, I do want to show you one thing that's really helpful for getting the most that you can out of this course. So I'm going to go into the course. All right, hold on and share the screen again. Okay, so I go through the slides in the video lecture, but you'll also see that there's all these links that I say, oh, be sure to go into the link. If you go down here, whoops, someone is waiting. If you go down here to the outlines and slides, then you see links to the slides. You actually have to, gets a little bit true up, that's the outline. Let me get out of that. All right, there they are. Okay, there they are. So you have to open them up and then enable editing. and then go into slideshow mode for the links to work. And I'm forgetting where, there's a link. This is a really neat video that shows you how teaching doctors.
We're not talking about nutrition. We're
is
talking
really
about
helpful
food.
for them
We're
to
talking
learn how
about
to talk
what we
about
eat.
food with their clients, with their patients. So remember, you have to open it up and go into slideshow mode in order to use that. Okay. All right. So Yulia wanted me to go over the food labels. Are there any other requests for specific information or questions about the course? If not, I have a few other things, and we can actually review for the test with Kahoot as well. Okay. All right. Just shout out if you do. I am going to show you two other things in these slides. All right. Okay. We'll get there. Okay. All right. So okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about, there's something that, nope, hold on. We'll do that in a minute. Okay. So something that I think is really important, especially for future nurses, is that they learn how to translate from the science and all of the details we learn about nutrition to simple changes. And that's why at the end of every homework assignment, I ask you to do just that. So we may talk, and I'm trying to think of what we're, okay. In Unit 2, we're going to talk about both omega-3 fatty acids, which you find in salmon, and we'll also talk about plant sources of protein, and that might be lima beans or edamame. I'm not, soybeans, I'm not sure. But to translate the science into strategies, you might say have salmon once a week, okay? Or once a week, try to eat a meatless meal and rely on plant proteins. So it's really helpful when you're working with clients to make your strategies easy instead of things that are unrelatable. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about was right here, and that's the dietary guidelines. And if you lose my slides, shout out, please, because I'm looking at a slide on the dietary guidelines. I know that I lectured about this in the video lecture, but I did want to talk about some new information here. So let me go back to seeing your faces for a minute. So one of the things that's important to understand is what the dietary guidelines are. The dietary guidelines that are listed in your text and that we look at in the slides are the 2015. And guess what? The 2020 dietary guidelines just came out. Thankfully, in a way, for you, they're not very different. Okay, so they stuck with pretty much the same recommendations. There's a little bit of a difference in that they talk about how it's important for people throughout the lifespan to watch their diet, to eat healthy. So I think that's important because sometimes people think, don't worry, they're just kids. Don't worry about kids. You know, I had sugar when I was a baby too. It didn't hurt me. You know, they'll worry about their diet when they're adults. But now we have a lot of problems with kids being unhealthy. And in fact, we have higher rates of obesity in children than ever before. So these dietary guidelines look at the whole lifespan. So that's good. The thing that some of us are disappointed about with these dietary guidelines is they perhaps once again didn't exactly follow the scientific recommendations. So the expert committee wanted to drop the added sugar down more, and the dietary guidelines as issued do not. And the expert committee wanted to make the recommendation for moderate alcohol consumption for men the same as women. They didn't think there's enough science to have two different guidelines. and the committee did not do that either. But other than that, they're not bad. I want to show you some resources, and then we will, hold one second, look at a little video together. Okay. So I think, so this is dietaryguidelines.gov, and you can get the PDF. They use the Make Every Bite Count as kind of the slogan for this time around. The push is that most of your food should be really packed with nutrients rather than, you know, packed with empty calories. And the other, there are some other resources here. I think I have the Zoom set up so we can watch this together. It's a nice little video, and it does stress the importance of not only paying attention to nutrition throughout the lifespan, but also the fact that different preferences and cultures and foods can be included depending upon the individual. So let's watch this together. Back to you. And I have a question to ask all of you. So did anything jump out at you from that surprised you maybe? No. So I'll tell you. Go ahead. Did you have something to say, Karima?
Yes, please, ma'am. I saw that they have in the video a lot of picture about food that's contain more protein and vegetables more than carbs.
Yeah, there is a little shift on that. You know, when I was first became a dietitian, the food plans were always built around mostly carbohydrates. And sometimes that was interpreted to be lots of bread and potatoes and pasta and the refined type, which was totally wrong. But now we are seeing more carbohydrate coming in from things like plant proteins and fruits and vegetables. So you're right, there seems to be less of an emphasis there. Anything else?
So
I'll tell you what, go ahead.
Do you think, Professor, that a lot of protein can make a toxication for
too much can be Yeah,
Yeah.
too much can be a problem. So one of the things we'll learn in the next unit is that when you exceed your protein needs, the extra can be stored as fat. So it doesn't make muscles, it makes fat. The other thing is for certain individuals, especially someone with weak kidneys, too much protein can put stress on the kidneys as well. So you really do need a balance. And I love videos where they show, you know, diverse individuals eating foods that look delicious, because I think a lot of times people think healthy eating has to taste horrible. You know, to be on a healthy diet, I'll just have to put up with it and eat these horrible foods. And that's not the case at all. We want people to find healthy foods that they love. What I was struck by, probably not surprised, is that we haven't made much progress. I remember that one graph that showed the healthy eating score, and with somewhere around 50% of Americans, maybe. There was recently, I posted it up on the Padlet. Oh, it was dismal. You know, kids are 7% or something like that, or meeting their vegetable needs or their fruit needs. So we're not doing well despite knowing how important nutrition is. And I guess the other piece is the obesity rates, right? We'll talk about that. We want people to have, you know, high quality, disease-free lives. And when there are things that get in the way of that, that should motivate us to help them to change. So the dietary guidelines haven't changed a lot. I do love the emphasis on the whole lifespan. I really do. I was kind of rooting for the drop in alcohol. And the reason, which we'll talk about in the next unit, is the evidence around alcohol being beneficial is weaker than they originally tried to convince us. So there are a lot of problems with alcohol in the diet, but especially, of course, when you go over moderation. One of the big concerns about alcohol is the link to some cancers. And that's something that more and more we're worried about women and breast cancer, because it does kick up the risk. And it's kind of become accepted now that, you know, women drink alcohol in equal amounts to men. And I'm not saying, because I believe that everyone, you know, chooses their own risks in lives, but I think that we need to make sure people know there is some risk to that. So let me go to one more part before we look at the review. So I wanted to go to the slides. Okay, whoops. I'm just finding, okay, here we go. All right. And that's not, so I'm gonna need you to tell me, because I thought I was in the slides. Let's go here. Shout out if you see the slides. Are you looking at a slide that says dietary reference intake?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. So let me go to this, because I wanted to show you, talk a little bit about this, kind of give away a test question for you as well, if you haven't taken the test, which you probably haven't, and also help you understand the information you're going to see as part of your diet analysis project. So I was a clinical dietitian for years before I started college teaching. And I love this part of the job. I love the assessment. The assessment is gathering the data so you can figure out what's going on, and then move to the next step, which is making a plan for the client. So it involves gathering the data like nutrient intake, and you're doing that for your project, of course. And we're going to look at what these charts mean in just a minute. But I also wanted to mention that a dietitian or a nurse who works in this area gathers other information as well, things like height and weight, medical history, family history, physical exam, laboratory measurements. All of those things are important. And the reason why I'm telling you that, family history as well, is this. And I will also show you the full reports file. When you do your 3-day diet analysis project, let's say your results look like this, and you see that you're only meeting half of your iron need, okay? That shows that for those 3 days, your iron intake was low, but it doesn't diagnose an iron deficiency, okay? And we really need to be careful about that. If you're short on these 3 days, that's worrisome, but it doesn't mean you have a clinical deficiency, because to diagnose that, you would need these other things. If I saw that a patient was very low in iron intake, I would probably look at my patient, maybe look at the membrane that lines her eye to see if it's pale, maybe look at her nail beds to see if they're pale. I would want to see her blood work to see if iron was low and some other indicators. And I'd probably ask her about how she's feeling, right? So find out if she's been tired or is cold all the time, if she's craving ice. So it's like a puzzle, and that's why I loved it so much. We're putting all of these things together to make a diagnosis. So this does not diagnose. This is just one very important piece of the puzzle. Now, I wanted to share, hold on, looks like I lost them, so I can find them. I wanted to share the iProfile report so you can see what they should look like. All right. Share screen again. All right. So when you're finished your iProfile project for Unit 1, if you follow the directions, you're actually going to see this nice, neat file with all of these reports in it. And you'll use different ones for different assignments, but let's look at this. You begin this project by plugging in your information, so that's up top. Next unit, we're going to talk about the AMDR a little bit more, although it was introduced in this unit. The AMDR is the recommendations for what percentage of your calories should come from carb, fat, and protein. And that's what this report shows you. So who is this? Jane. Okay, so this is Jane. And Jane is in all of the ranges. So that part of her diet looks good. Here's her journal. All right, let's look at this. You're going to use this report a lot. This report shows you the nutrient, the recommendation for Jane. Everyone will have something different depending on who you are, male, female, activity level, et cetera, et cetera. That's the recommendation, and this is Jane's intake. And to be very clear, it's averaged already. You don't have to do any averaging. And then the last column compares her intake to the recommendation. So Jane was really in good shape here, but if we look further, we see some problems because her saturated fat is high. We're going to learn that that's an unhealthy fat. Her healthy fats are low, okay? Her fiber's low. Let's see what else. Lots of vitamins and minerals are low. So throughout this semester, you're going to be looking at this data and then telling me what it means and what you might change to live healthier. Now, for the very first assignment, you're going to use only one report from this file, and that's all the way down here. It's a very last report if you saved it according to the directions, and it has Jane as being very low, if 100 is the goal, in fruits and dairy and oils, and look at empty calories, very high in empty calories. So any questions about that?
Professor, I did the iProfile last week, and I have the the date for last week. Is it okay? Or I have to do another one?
Oh, no, you're fine. So you only have to do it one time for 3 days. And then we'll use those reports over and over and over again. So you just do one time. You might find that your diet starts to change a little as you learn more about your diet. So sometimes people say, my sodium is triple what it's supposed to be. And then you hunt down where it comes from and make changes. But we're going to keep using those initial 3 days. That's good. And you do submit it with every homework assignment. It seems weird that you'd have to do that, but it turns out Canvas doesn't let me navigate around too easy, so it's easier if it just comes in together. Okay, and for people who came in a little later, just because it's such a question over and over again, the reading quizzes will look like zeros, okay,
Yes.
until the deadline passes, and then they get converted into the points. All right, so I have one more thing that I'd like to do with you, but Yulia, did you have a question?
I had a question about reading quizzes. It's about chapter, information from chapter and from lecture?
Mostly chapter, so they come straight from the textbook.
Okay, thank you.
And that's a good question because the exams, a combination, okay? So the exams, a lot of those questions I've written myself, so it will sound a little more like lecture than it does the textbook.
Yes, I just want to tell you that unfortunately, before last night, my son touched the computer by mistake, and he opened the exam, and I was forced to do the exam because I saw the one at the 60 minutes going, and I did it, and I got a bad grade because I don't have enough time at that.
If something like that happens, so send me an email separately, because if something like that happens, I can reset an exam for you, okay?
Thank you so much.
So can you send me an email to remind me? All
Thank
right.
you so much,
Okay.
Professor.
That must have been panic, right? You're like, oh my gosh, my exam's
I
running.
couldn't sleep last night.
Oh, okay. Just remind me in an email. That's helpful. And remember to send emails by Canvas.
Yes.
So the very last thing we're going to do is how many of you have done Kahoots when we used to be back together in class? No?
Do what?
Okay. So a Kahoot is an online little quiz contest, and we can do it together now. How many of you have a cell phone with you? Okay, all right. So I'm going to tell you what to do, and I don't know if Amira and IJ do, but if not, you can just follow along.
I do.
You do? Okay, good. So I'm going to take us to the Kahoot, and you're going to type into your search bar? Yeah, your browser, right? Kahoot.it, all right? And then it's going to give you a code and we're going to play. Now, Kahoot has music, so while the music's running, you won't hear me, but we'll run through the game and you'll get some kind of tips for the test as well. So let me go to this.
Please, can you spell it? The Kahoot?
Yes,
KAHOOT.IT, and it will come up. So let me go to the screen. All right, where's my Kahoot? And there it is. All right, and this is what we're going to play. We're going to do that. Virtual classrooms. Everything's become more, and we're going to do classic. All right. So join at Kahoot.it and plug this number in. And if I'm explaining this well, I should see some of you pop up.
Yeah, I'm there. I did.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
So do you hear me, by the way? There you are. Okay. Oh, good. Yay. All right. So we only have, and I'll get started now. And remember, this is just a review. So tell me, can you hear me over the music?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, because I sometimes want to say a little something about the question. So I don't want you to be embarrassed if you don't know the answers, because we're kind of using this as a primer for the test. There we go. Perfect. All right, like that. Let's get started. Now, these are timed, so you typically only have 30 seconds to answer. And the more quickly you answer, the more points you get. So let's go. You're going to choose the color, as far as I know, on your screen.
I don't get it. I understand. So I don't get it. What's the question? Which of is the most nutrient? Okay, I didn't get it.
Okay. All right. And I hear you, so I'm guessing you hear me. So we had 2 correct answers, which is awesome. So, but this is a reminder that for the test, make sure you know what nutrient dense is. Okay, so some of these terms will come up again. All right, Karima in the lead.
I didn't see any question.
Exactly.
I just see the color.
It's on top.
You see it up top? Let me make it bigger for you. How about now? So something that may be happening is the menu bar hiding over the question? This is what I'll do. I'll read the question as well from now on, okay? But all of these are characteristics of the typical American diet. So I will read the question and let's go. Oh, we had a little bit of switching around here. It is recommended that Americans moderate. So you need to know what moderate means.
Yeah, this thing is covering the green. What is written on the green? I can't see what is there. Yeah.
We cannot see what is in the green button.
Yeah, it's covered. It's covered.
Is it covered now?
It's still covered, yes. Yeah, when you remove your mouse now, it's showing, yeah.
So I remove my menu. I don't think that's covering it though. So it looks like this is not working because I'm not sure why it's not working. So you do not see the answers.
Before, but as you move your mouse, it now showed. As you move your mouse, I think your mouse was covering the green.
The mouse was? Okay.
I think so, yeah.
So let's try this. So moderation means not too much of things, and sugar, salt, and solid fats are the problem. So let's see if this is better. So my mouse is the problem. All right, let's keep going. Okay, consuming low energy dense meals and snacks. Can you see the answers?
Yes, it's good now.
Okay. Okay, so terminology, you should definitely know what low energy dense means. Low energy dense means, low energy dense is more the same as nutrient dense, tends to have a lot of fiber and fluid. So the correct answer is all answers are correct. And that's part of the lecture. So be sure to cover that as well. Okay. Karima is really in the lead here. All right, so the 6 classes of nutrients include all but, which is not a class of nutrients.
I just will answer because it doesn't work in my phone. It's alcohol.
Okay, so next time wait till everyone guesses and then,
Okay.
okay. Yeah, sometimes the internet connection is a problem, okay, and it is alcohol. So alcohol is something we may drink, but it's not a nutrient group, all right? Let's see where we are here. Okay, onward to the Choose My Plate website recommends half of the plate is taken up by what? So don't shout it out till we have all the answers in. Let's see how we do. Not bad. It's fruits and vegetables. And the new plate still stresses that. Whole grains and fruit. Does that make sense? You know, there's not a whole lot of difference, but the emphasis is on half of the plate being from fruits and vegetables. Okay. All right. Of the ingredients list of the food label, the ingredients are listed in order according to which of these things?
Honestly, I don't know this one.
So we said, very good. It actually is, oh, not very good. All right, I'm thinking green is go. It is weight. So it is most to least for weight. And what was, yeah, they're not alphabetically listed, that's for sure. Okay.
Excuse me, let me ask before. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Go ahead. I
Go
wanted to
ahead.
ask a question on that. Yeah, but go ahead.
Okay, this is a little bit tricky, but we did go over this. So let's see how you do. 25% of the daily value means this is a tricky one.
Yeah, it is.
Very good. So what happened is I threw in too high, which isn't true, because if it's something you want more of, like calcium, it's not too high. It just means high or low. So remember that. A lot of these are linked to test questions. To determine whether a patient may be consuming too much of a nutrient, compare his intake to which one of these dietary reference intakes. We didn't cover this today, but this was in the lecture. Okay, it's the UL, the tolerable upper intake level. So this is a reminder to review these different dietary reference intakes. You'll definitely see them in the test. And we will use the UL in Unit 4 in the homework as well. Okay, IJ is gathering up some steam here. The most reliable source for nutrition information out of these four. Okay, that peer-reviewed or scholarly article, right? Because other experts in the field review the research and it's carefully reviewed before they even publish it. So unlike something like Prevention Magazine or I can't think of enough, they don't publish anything kind of just because it sounds exciting. A peer-reviewed article has been through a rigorous process. So that's what you want. And we didn't talk food safety, but what's the maximum time that perishable food can be left at room temperature? No more than how much?
It's a guesswork, I guess.
Okay, 2 hours is correct. No more than 2 hours. So if you make a nice dinner and everyone's sitting around talking, when the 2-hour time is up, you need to get things refrigerated. Okay, because that bacteria grows exponentially. And if you look at the graph, it swoops up after 2 hours, and then there's enough that it could make you very ill. You can determine if your hamburger is safe to eat by checking what? Okay, the temperature is the best thing to check. Quality of the beef's important, by the way. They found that there's less food poisoning around grass-fed beef than corn-fed, which is very interesting. But the temperature is what you really need to check for food safety. Okay. Food that is contaminated with a foodborne pathogen often looks and smells completely normal. True or false? Okay. It can smell normal and make you really sick. So we can't use the sniff test and think that is going to guard us from food poisoning. Which of the following is a safe method for defrosting meat or poultry, like your chicken breasts? So remember, which is the safe one? Yes. Okay, placing it in the refrigerator, running it under cold water, not warm, and also microwaving, but if you microwave, you really have to cook it right away. Okay, all right, Karima, let's see if you're gonna walk away with the virtual prize here. Which of the following is an example of cross-contamination? It is all of those things. When the bacteria from one food moves into another, and there's a lot of different ways for that to happen. So let's see, here's our podium. Amira, yay! Hi, Jay, yay! And here we have the, okay. And that's very good. Okay, and hopefully you got some review of some of the major concepts there. Okay, if you go into Kahoot.com, you can play this game on your own. I've made them all public, so you can go in and you can review all of those questions again. Okay, so I am finished with you unless you have a question for me.
Yes, I do.
Okay. What is it?
Yeah, you said we should watch the video by fast food. I don't know where exactly I can see that. The video bites.
The video bites. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a couple of ways to get to them, but I know that I have them linked in the slides. Did you try to use the slides to run them?
Slide. In the e-test, I didn't even see with the link at all. In the e-test.
Let me show you. Here. Okay, I think I have to get out of. Hold on. The hardest thing about Zoom is transitioning from one thing to another. All right, so you tell me, do you see outlines and slides in front of you?
Yes.
Okay. So at the end of every module, you can also get to them from the textbook, but this is the way that I typically find them. You'll find outlines and slides. If you go into the slides and then open them up, okay, so this is going to open, enable editing, and play it as a slideshow. That's the trick. Then when you get to those bites, and I'm forgetting, there's one. Okay, let me move this. This link should work. I'm crossing my fingers here. Yep, okay. So that's one way to get to them. You have to actually open up the slides, but I think we can find another way as well. So let me go back. Okay, so let's go to the module again and to the reading. If my memory is okay, here we go. If you click into the chapter right underneath the module, the unit, we should be able, let's see what comes up when we do. Yeah, so we can get to them this way too. This is a eating locally, what's part of the video quiz. And here's 2 video bites. So if we click on that, there it is, voila. So let's check that again, okay? All that I did was I went under the work unit, and then you're gonna find the reading unit. And if I click into the very first part of this, I think actually if I click into any, I can find the videos that are part of this chapter. Let me just do one other thing to check something here. I want to know if that happens if I click into any. Yep, okay. So that actually happens regardless of what I click into. But now instead of showing 3 videos, it's just showing the one that I think is associated with this unit. So you can find them that way. It looks like from our little experiment here that if you click into the very first part of the chapter, so 1.1, you get access to all of them. Let's try that for 2.1. 2.1 doesn't look